The Evolution Security Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to the Evolution Security Podcast, also known as the EvoSec Podcast. Eric, what do we like to call it these days?
Yeah, I think we go back and forth. It's funny, most of our audience members and folks that know us, they tend to call us EvoSec more than anything else. So it's kind of drifted that way, but also our podcast is called the Evolution Security Podcast. So, either or, what have you.
You have a choice. We like giving people options.
Yeah.
Well, so Eric, we've got another killer episode with the awesome John Murphy from FPF Training. It was a lot of fun getting together with him. We alluded to in the interview that we had a few issues trying to get us all together. We had some technical issues, but finally got it together. I don't want to say too much about the interview because, again, we had a lot of fun. He's a fun guy to hang out with and has so much amazing information. I think we're going to go ahead and jump in here and talk to John.
Let's do it, brother.
Hey, everybody. We would like to welcome John Murphy of FPF Training, and also, like Eric and I just finished up our Rangemaster Instructor certification, but John is actually one of 5 actual Rangemaster instructors, so pretty cool there too. John, thanks for coming back again.
It's been an uphill struggle and on a long road. First, we had my electrical meltdown situation in my RV. Then we recorded, a pretty decent podcast,
A really
I thought.
good one.
But there was some technical issues there.
But I'm going to say that every bit of the technical was me. My USB interface failed on us. So
Thanks a lot, you jerk.
Third time will be the charm. I'm quite sure of it.
Absolutely.
Well, we've got some redundancies going on, which we usually do, but we've made sure of it this time. Behind the scenes, movie magic, making a podcast. Well, John, so you're living the dream, traveling the country in an RV, teaching courses. Now, I kind of wanted to back up and say, you talk about your classes, but what made you decide to go ahead and just jump right in an RV and live that kind of lifestyle? That sounds awesome.
Well, the journey began about 17 years ago, give or take. I formed my little company, FPF Training, and that stands for Front Sight Press Follow Through. And found I had some capacity to teach locally, branched out regionally, and concurrently I was, pursuing my government career in the intelligence community. And then the Rona hit. And in 2021, I was doing telework at home and putting together my 2021 schedule. And the classes were clustering about 400 miles apart. And I thought, well, how far can I make this go? And I made it go all the way across the country and back. Filled up about 30 weekends. And I thought, data point. Talked to the financial planner about what it was I'd be giving up by leaving 2 years early. And walked in, saw my boss, said, I love you, man. I'm out. And retired effective 22 January of 2021. Then moved into my RV, which I call Maslow, for Dr. Abraham Maslow,
Nice.
Hierarchy of Needs. Moved into him on the 30th of January of last year. And I've been haze gray and underway ever since. It was time for the change. I had a pretty good crew working for me. I had some great times, but at some point, you're just tired of working for the man. So here I am.
Well, let me ask you this. You piqued my interest when you named it Maslow, right? So the hierarchy of needs that many people will know, but I'm trying to guess. Is that because your RV got you to the top of self-actualization?
That's exactly correct. A man must be that which he was meant to be, and here I am. Maslow is primarily self-actualization. He moves me to where I do what what I really enjoy doing, and all the while he provides security, warmth. I just had a hot shower a moment ago. Microwave my leftover quesadillas from Outback or whatever the hell it was, and then it's pretty much everything I got is right
And
here.
also a place to do the deed. That's one of those necessary.
Oh yeah, let me tell you about the massive lifestyle here as the itinerant firearms instructor. Oh my God, yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, one time I snuck backstage at a Winger concert, and there was a little RV trailer, and I kid you not, there were 30 women in a line waiting to get in that Kip Winger's RV trailer. And I'm not kidding you, the door would open, one girl would come out, and another would go in. And it kept going. It's like, dude, what is this guy interviewing, tonight's contestant or what, But so that's what I picture outside your RV when you get done teaching classes. Bunch of
I don't want to dispel your fantasy thing, so let's just drop that topic and let me give you. Oh yeah, sure, you betcha. Yeah, all the time. No.
Well, John, before we go much further, that's a great description on what you're up to right now. But let's digress just a minute and talk about how you got to that point, however, in your earlier beginnings.
Sure. I moved to the Virginia area from Dallas and fell in with a group of very serious defensive pistol practitioners at Fort Meade. They're still at it. That was my first exposure to any kind of military outside of the training. My first class I ever had was with John Farnham. And for the infantry marine guy,
awesome.
steeped in the locate, close with, and destroy mentality, the possibility that I would actually have to talk to somebody rather than just, it was kind of mind boggling. Discovered along the way, I was fostered quite well. Discovered I had some capacity to teach. Developed that. Was very fortunate having some mentors that pulled me along the way. One relative unknown guy, Gary Greco, and then my first real mentor in the shooting community was Pat Rogers. And then I've been extremely fortunate to be brought under wing by Tom and Lynn Givens. And that's what has put me into the Rangemaster family, and that has been a profound impact upon my approach and certainly my skill sets.
Well, and John, I'll say we're new to the Rangemaster family, at least on as far as the instructor development certification. But one of the things that has become readily evident, obviously, Tom has a legacy or lineage from many instructors himself, but also the infamous Jeff Cooper. And I've seen a lot online, kind of some discussions recently, and I have to admit that I think Tom and the Rangemaster lineage, I think is kind of I hope I'm not going to blow up the internet, but I think is kind of a second coming of folks like Jeff Cooper, and I think that the current firearms training community, the Rangemaster certification program, I think is just one of the better ways to go. Am I wrong in that?
I think you got a big hunk right, but it's evolved generationally beyond that. Colonel Cooper, it is very the current trend, to slam him and his work in that time. I got news, folks. We would not exist today
Absolutely not. Yep.
as an industry or having advanced our art were it not for what Jeff Cooper did back in the big days, the Big Bear leather slap contest, the Eldridge Carl, and those rest of those guys doing that thing. They really started to quantify and set standards. I think we've moved beyond them, as we should, in progress. But we stand upon the shoulders of giants. We really do. And many of the younger people may not appreciate that.
Guys, can we back up just a second? There's some controversy and people kind of slacking Colonel Cooper.
Oh, that's
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It usually revolves around the Weaver stance, and Colonel Cooper was a man of opinion. Okay. And he was also a man of some experience. I mean, he made some bones.
Got it.
And yes, we've moved beyond that. Kinesthetically, we understand things a lot differently now. The 1911 is no longer this on the preeminent defensive firearm on the planet. We moved on, and but the foundation of the house that we live in was laid by Colonel Cooper.
Yep.
When you take Tom's Master Instructor program, he will have essentially or a historical handgun with Carl Wren, and there's a collaborative effort coming up with those two coming up very
Can't
soon
wait.
at Carl's place. Tom will lay out in about an hour and a half to 2 hours people who had an amazingly positive impact on where we are today, and others who were actually kind of a detriment along the way. And the names, some are lost to history. Some are we bear some of the scars until recently, institutionally. And I would be referring to Jelly Bryce of the FBI and his capacity to do that point shooting thing. Well, yeah, the man had superhuman eyesight, and he was just kind of a one-off. Maybe him and Ted Williams probably have had eyeballs like that in recent humanity. But we can't lose sight of where we've been and what got us to where we are, and the struggles and the market forces which continue to make us evolve societally. We are in the midst of a huge ownership expansion right now, as far as people exercising the right to keep and bear arms, and that was back in the day you didn't carry just one revolver, you carried two, but that was your reload. And then we fell away from that, and now people are coming back to recognizing that they are in fact going to be at their own crime scene every time as a victim. And even a 30-second police response, which is virtually unheard of, can be 20 seconds too late. So people are understanding that. I think we've seen across the country where governments have receded. And now there's what's referred to as smile and wave policing. Because you get out of that car or you do something and the wrong footage is captured, or you're subjected to the wrong district attorney, and you are the next contestant, and you're going to jail. So there is a void opening up, and both sides are competing to fill that void. I think the criminal element is definitely rising their game. I think that the recent statistic anomalies, such as they are, would support that. And I would also say the number of people buying guns would support the other side of that hypothesis.
Well, and guys like yourself and a lot of our mentors are certainly starting to fill that void. And I think that you said it, and I've heard a lot of other folks say it, is that we're possibly in the best of times and in the worst of times, right? And so luckily, though, that I think it's the dichotomy of even this media or medium, pardon me, that we're on right now, there's an awesome proliferation of information, and there's so much info that it's also hard to decipher what's valuable information and what is not. And even though we didn't set out to do that, that's one of our missions, is to make sure that we're, providing guests like you and Tom and Craig, and just go down the list, all the folks that we have on our show. We try to make sure that folks are getting the right information. So,
Well, because it's all filtered information by the experts in the whole country, and some people might see the great podcasts and see a lot of the same guests, but you know what? It's because let's just take a stab. There's about 30. I'm just throwing a number out there. There's about 30 amazing instructors and subject matter experts that really drive the legit information and training. And you know what? We're all kind of part of that circle. So, I mean, and everything gets tested. Craig Douglas's human laboratories of what's really working in a clinch. The human laboratories of John Correa's videos that he analyzes all the time. We know so much about what we should prioritize. And unfortunately, there's a small group of people in this country that seek out guys like you. When I say that, relatively small, as gun owners, right? So it's a shame that that's the case, because there's so many great minds that want to almost give the information away, right? So
I've got 5 hours of content, 5 hours plus on my YouTube channel, which has received some pretty positive reviews. Getting back to the internet as information superhighway, Pat Rogers was famous for saying, "Yeah, but it can also be the disinformation cowpath."
yes.
And this wave of new owners, they're slumped. There are people who have a great deal of celebrity in the training industry, but a lot of what they're teaching is divorced from a reality of what normal, average, everyday people need. I mean, going back to using my mentor Pat, I was part of working in a gun store, helping out as we were selling his estate. And at the very breaking of the pandemic, a kid and his wife came in and they bought a Smith & Wesson EZ 9mm and Patch 870 shotgun. And I said, "Holy cow, let me tell you about the provenance of that gun." And the kid stood there, he held it at port arms. I took a picture of him with his finger on the trigger.
Boo.
And I captured that image, and then I said, "Hey, son, let me help you out with that a little bit. Because this thing can get loud and really dangerous really quickly if you're not very careful." So I think we are charged with the responsibility, and you guys are certainly stepping up to make sure that we're modulating that wave and sending out good, relevant information to a very audience that can be pulled in many directions at once.
Let's talk about Tentacore. Tentacore continues to innovate with pressure-tested, purpose-driven gear, from holsters to mag pouches, like one of our favorite holsters, the Khartoum 3 AIWB OWB, the Abdo AIWB mag pouch, and now the new, finally released Zero Belt. This one-of-a-kind belt is made of solid military-grade webbing, but isn't overly stiff or over-engineered. It's intended to be comfortable, yet supports your carry gear. One other unique attribute is the buckle feeds the tail under the opposite webbing, providing infinite adjustments, which all purpose-built carry belts should. If you're interested in the Zero Belt or any of the mentioned products, visit Tentacore.com and use EVO 2021 at checkout for 10% off. Well, and John, I want to move into discussing what is your flagship course. But before I do that, I will be remiss because we started speaking about the history of how we came to this point. And I'm going to admit, until Aaron and I and Brian did this show, we understood the relevancy, but really didn't know the relevancy of some of that history. And then training with of course, Tom, and then hearing Carl Wren's lectures on some of it. I wanted to make sure that everybody knows that the history is deeply important. And one way that you can gain that history is one of our really good buddies, Lee Weems. His podcast is called That Weems Guy. He has some of, we're talking about Gunsight history. He's had several individuals from Gunsight, the CEO of Gunsight, and multiple other
Generation 1.0 era Gunsight people.
Yes, absolutely. So please go over and on any of the platforms, look up That Weems Guy and get you some history on. And
good stuff.
And John was just recently on Lee's show. It was excellent podcast. Look for that one as well.
And let me just interject here. Lee is a cool guy, and he's a funny guy. He's just simply entertaining. I don't know. He could probably be on that. What's that? What were those redneck comedians? I'm losing my train of thought, but he could be on that redneck comedian tour if you.
Oh, you're talking about Jeff Foxworthy, yeah.
yeah. They could have brought him along and told
you
jokes
might
about
be a redneck.
Yeah, that's great. I actually went and saw that live. That was good, actually.
Yeah, you might be a redneck if the only kind of music you listen to, it has to have a steel guitar in it.
Like that's what Lee said, right?
who plays steel guitar in their band?
So,
all right.
So, John, let's talk about your class, Street Encounters, Skills and Tactics. Tell us.
Okay.
Tell us about that and what people should expect.
That is a course that evolved the curriculum based upon a hard look at what people need to know about beyond simply shooting. Because let's face it, fellas, there is a long line of shit-hot shooting instructors across the country right now. But I thought I would look at the problem from a before and after standpoint, from the armed self-defense. Oh, I do some shooting. I do some pretty novel stuff in the shooting realm with novel stimulus and things of that nature. But what does a pre-assault indicator look like? If you are very proud of your sub-second draw stroke, I got news, bro. If your sub-second draw stroke is 3 seconds too late, it don't matter. And then afterward, how do you manage to see? How do you contact 911? Anything you say can and will be used against you. And there are competing schools of thought there. I'm informed from the best in the industry in that regard. Massad Ayoob has been very formative in my approach.
The godfather of that.
There are two people in the industry right now that have built the pyramid upon which they stand astride. One is Massad Ayoob, and in the gravest extreme, the law concerns of our average citizens. The other is Craig Douglas and the entangled gunfight.
Nice.
They have both built those mountains, and it is something to watch. I've been reading. I turned 60 here. It's about 3 months. I've been reading Massad Ayoob for about 45 years, give or take. So there is a body of work there to draw from. He has his detractors, as do we all, but he will gladly stand there and go toe-to-toe and debate you on points large and small. So I have some of that in there. A big thing I like to do is capture what I call time and timing to that first best shot based upon a visual stimulus, you have to understand, okay, if I'm a 1.5 second draw to my first best shot, and I recognize from my training and exposure that I'm in a 1 second window, then I need to do something else. On that note, John Korea had some really seminal workout on his Facebook page last week before last, about muzzle and eyesight orientation on you during the course of an act of crime. And if he is looking away, that's maybe a second and a quarter. If you can see his ear, second and a half for your draw. If he's faced away, that's 2 seconds. I was so impressed with that because it quantified what I've been working on for a long while. I mean, it really put a fine point to it. As we speak, Action Target is redesigning my target to include a different. I've always used what I call the Hydra heads on 3 sides.
yeah.
Well, this time the heads will be looking away, and because that is your opportunity. We have to train people to understand when these opportunities at that close range appear, and what skill they have to successfully fill that void and avoid a Pyrrhic victory at best. I mean, if the muzzle is on you, we've all worked from low ready. I will time people from a low ready to a visual cue to a first shot. It can be about 0.6, 0.7 seconds. And I think there are very few people out there that can pull off a 0.7 second draw stroke, particularly if they're staged in a compliance position like that. And plus, if you're standing in one spot when you do it, you're still it's the best you can hope for is a tie, and who needs that shit? So that was really seminal work. I do a lot of that. I'm also incorporating now conflict disengagement. I'm not a big believer in conflict communication and conflict. I mean, we've all been parking spot conflicts. Oh my God, I got into a thing with a lady out in Phoenix in a hotel over a laundry That was pretty ugly. And we have to recognize when we were getting sucked into the verbal vortex, and our monkey brains have taken over, and we're just echoing, slinging poo back and forth at each other. I'm not one of those. You're one of those. I'm not one of those. You're one of those. And all we're doing is posturing and circling around the drain. There's no communication taking place. But we have to recognize that we don't know who we're dealing with. We don't know how far they will go to make a point. I'm noticing right now in Florida, there was a theater shooting in Florida 8 years ago. Retired police officer. It was over cell phone use during the previews. It's my video view ahead. I think certainly one for street counter skills and tactics. It's been 8 years going to trial, and there was all kinds of motions and things going on, but you just don't know what someone will do based upon it. May be a rational fear, it may be irrational fear, but getting shot dead over a parking space is just not really my lifetime goal. So we have to have means to recognize that we're not having a productive communication, and then we have to be able to swallow our pride and just, all right, it's all, you're right, I win, you win, I'm out of here, and have a pleasant. And we have to avoid that the parting shot, and you have a good day, which is just a fancy way of flipping somebody off, and then before you know it, you just strummed them back up. There you were getting your disengagement, and you use the wrong tone and tenor and volume. And look, think about the two words, excuse me, same two words, utterly different connotations. And if improper verbiage, well, then we beg the problem that we don't want, because if we've adopted this lifestyle, we're armed.
Always.
And any conflict we get into is going to be armed conflict. And you just don't know who you're dealing with at any given moment. So I work that into the scenarios as well. I like to say that we have a big dial from 1 to 10, and beside the dial is a big red button. And 1 through 3 on the dial is pleasant social exchange. 4, 5 panhandlers, things that maybe a little conflict at work. 6, 7, aggressive panhandler, moving towards strong, to an 8, strong arm robbery. And then 9, 10 would be lethal. 10 would be a lethal force situation. And sometimes we have to dial up to that during our conversation, movement, what have you. We can dial up, but once we get our way, which is separation, we can dial down. But sometimes we need that capacity to just mash that big red button. And because at some point, immediately defaulting to the last resort is the appropriate answer. We spend a lot of time training that in classes, and that can actually set up a false or a bad heuristic, a bad practice, where people shoot when they shouldn't. For instance, we're back to Florida. 4 or 5 years ago, there was a parking lot dispute over a handicap space. And a guy, a self-appointed handicap space enforcer with a concealed carry permit, was really giving this lady the how-to and the what for. Her husband came out, saw what was going on, went up and shoved him to the ground. And the guy got on the ground, got to his feet, drew his pistol, and then you can see him. It was always, okay, let's see. I've been assaulted. Check. I'm in a position of disadvantage. Check. And my gun is in my hand. Check. Therefore, I must shoot. When the fact the guy had already backed and his posture was had already changed. Fatal shot into the chest. His defenses did not work. I watched the tail end of his trial, the closing arguments, and I think he caught a 15-year sentence out of that. I think he's in year 4 right now. I know he wasn't in prison very long before he caught his first prison beating.
I bet.
And frankly, I am too pretty for that. So we have to have a scale, and that scale has to be incorporated into our training. I teach people how to walk away. I will throw all kinds of insults at them, and you're like, hey, whoa, okay, no, you're right, I'm out. Until I reach a point where I make a threat. Like, you know what? I'm going to fuck you up! Okay, all right, well, then that's a whole other thing, isn't it? Now that's assault. Or they're not letting you leave. Well, then we have to have capacity for that. But think about the social and legal goodwill we're buying by creating that space and the hands like, whoa, I just want to go home. You're absolutely right. I want out. And then if that filter, if they pass through that filter, then we are in a much better position to take on the fight after that fight, which will be with the legal system.
Well, John, if I could make 2 comments, I want to digress 1 second. I want to come back to this. Is I saw that video in one of your view aheads regarding the guy that got shoved, and I analyzed it. I rewound it several times.
Back and forth.
And I sit there and looked at it, and 2 things that stood out to me. He was wearing a vest, right? And I love our IDPA. I do. There was a thought that came to my head. I was like, man, I wonder if this guy was an IDPA shooter. I don't know that, but it seemed to me like, again, we always talk about the whole the hammer and nail issue. That if all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail. And in that gentleman's mindset, as I viewed him, that was the only option at that point, was to draw and shoot. I mean, it seemed to me like he had a fairly developed draw stroke. And I mean, he plugged. I mean, it was, I was like, man.
Any training he had profoundly failed him.
Absolutely.
In street encounter skills and tactics, students will get a dozen or plus draws to a ready position and issue a verbal command.
The ready, yep.
I don't want to program people to shoot coming out of the holster right off the bat. If I can make a display of force, and yes, recognizing there's brandishing laws and things of that nature, justifications, and I can disarm a situation like, no, gentlemen, my beating is about to become your shooting. Please cease and desist upon this course of action. Then that can be a huge win, depending upon whose statistics you believe. I think Gary Kleck, Professor Kleck, says 2.5 million a year And our own Department of Justice claims 300,000. So either way, it is not an insignificant number of such defensive gun uses every year. And that we had to train to do that.
So what
We had to train for police.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
No, you're up. I'm
Oh no, not at all. So I think you're emphasizing the draw to ready, which again I think is just so crucial for people to develop. And going back to that one particular incident, where if everything is draw to the full extension and fire, you're setting yourself up for failure. Now, granted, we know there was more to his situation, and why we talk about these types of preparedness and training like what you offer is because you have to have, number one, you need to have a mental preparation in how you deal with all types of situations. That's why the video view aheads that you do your analysis of video, just like the analysis of video that John Correa does, it's crucial to have that decision-making process, which we're going to get further into later on in the show. But to me, having that gradation in draw stroke, I think is going to keep a lot of people out of jail.
Absolutely. And it all comes down to understanding the situation. I've got an understanding how people can close 5 yards on you. This past weekend, I had students. I had a lady, I love her, who has vaulted the 6-0 barrier, and she was still able to close 5 yards in 2 seconds. And people are, and I got a 1.5 second draw stroke. Well, I got news, bro. Granny's on top of you before you can appreciate that. People need to understand the relationship between time, distance, and speed, and how that can correlate to their circumstance. It all comes down to having a library of experience, either actual training experience, real life experience, or vicarious experience derived from watching these videos.
And John, you speak of that vicarious experience. You spoke on this several times, and I'd like you to, for our audience, describe why vicarious experience is important.
Sure. The science behind it is called recognition prime decision modeling. And these events, as do many events in our lives, have general recurring themes that occur. And the quicker we can see and recognize these themes, the faster we can respond to them appropriately. Years ago, I was teaching a class, and I had 2 people in the class, young couple, now married. And I had some videos in the class. This is back, you had to practically turn a crank on the side of the projector to make it go. And after the classroom portion, the lady said, "I very much appreciated your incorporation of recognition prime decision modeling in your presentation." And I said, "Well, yes, of course. Smith at MIT has been particularly revealing." I had no idea it was a science. And she is a Hopkins trained neuroscientist.
Wow.
That's what she does. She did a lot of work for the Marine Corps on training infantry squads and things of that nature. And it was both validating and educational that I had backed into something, which, as has many others before. I mean, there's a reason why we watch game films after a football game, or the fighter pilot guys watch video film of their maneuvers. It gives us an imprint of what things look like, and our mind cannot tell the difference between that actual experience and what we have seen portrayed to us on that video screen. And it's a powerful learning tool, which can be used to really reinforce some great decision. I call it kind of trimming the branches off of our decision tree to get down to an appropriate response.
Yeah, that's an excellent way of answering that question, John, and it is crucial. And like, so in my thought process, and especially when we're doing the show, we like to give folks just those small nuggets that they can engage today. And that's the first thing audience members start going out and reviewing street assault. Again, John Correa's show on
Active self-protection channel. Yep.
yeah.
By all means, subscribe to active self-protection. That just once or twice a week will be enough to keep that flowing in your head.
And to keep your response time much shorter, because you're, again, recognizing that could be a violent assault on you, and you deal with it. So, yeah.
So we're talking about our weekly recognition, primed decision-making dry fire.
Excellent point, Aaron.
Oh.
I think that's a new way to phrase it, Aaron. Excellent.
Well, I can only take credit for the dry fire part. Now that's awesome.
And that was another point I was going to make too, John. Based on what Aaron just said there, this is another, in my opinion, something that our audience members that may be new to this is something you can start today. On a regular basis, I practice the simple statement in my head: "Hey, sorry, buddy, my fault. Sorry, moving on."
Hey,
go ahead, Aaron.
I just did not want to be, I was looking for a time to squeeze this in. There were 3 words that, John, you said earlier when you were talking about disengaging. You said, "You're absolutely right."
I am so sorry.
Yeah. Just when you said that those words could really calm someone down.
They can. Now then, we have to look at the other side of this coin. Someone has a 51% majority on whether or not they will be to vote, whether or not they'll be de-escalated.
Mm-hmm.
You watched my videos. There was a car accident in San Bernardino. A 70-year-old sheriff's deputy who was still working in the house swerved to miss a car and caused an accident. And you can't hear the audio, but you can see he's saying the right things to this guy. And then the guy just checks off into another world. And you can see he was building up to something. Threw a blow, caught the guy on the chin, knocked him down, head hit the pavement, dead. So at some point, saying, like after a car accident scene, you can say whatever you want until the police arrive. I mean, if yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Actually, officer, what actually happened was this.
Mm-hmm.
That can be a whole other thing. But we have to recognize that some people are not going to be de-escalated, and we have to recognize when our efforts are failing. And if we can't de-escalate and depart, well then, there it is.
Well, John,
we've done everything we can.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you delineated that, because we want to be careful that when we enunciate how important the de-escalation is, and even the verbalization of, "Hey, I'm sorry, buddy," or "Ma'am," or whoever, "You're right," and try to de-escalate it. But let's face the fact, like you just said, you have to be prepared to deal with the hard skills and have the training to do it, and also be able to recognize and be able to execute a counter ambush, and/or if you've made that decision that it is a lethal situation, that you take the initiative. So yeah, thank you for making sure that we don't make it sound like that de-escalation is going to solve every situation.
You can watch any number of law enforcement activity channels and try efforts, sincere efforts in de-escalation, but they're duty bound to fulfill a situation, and we are not. Our duty is to ourselves, to GTFO. But if someone votes no, well then that's that. We tried. And think about the witnesses to that event. Well, that guy kept trying to back away, said he was sorry, tried to leave, and that guy just wouldn't let him. And then next thing you know, he pulled a tire iron out. So that guy had to defend himself, and he shot him. Now, that is a much more preferable situation to be in than engaging in a poo-flinging conflict of, "No, I'm not, you are." And then the tire iron comes out, and then the gun comes out. Well, then that almost looks like mutual combatants and that one actually had a gun.
Let's take a minute to talk about Origin. Origin supports us on the path. To quote Jocko, if you listen, then you know. They produce the best jiu-jitsu gis on the market, rash guards, spats, and Jocko fuel supplements. They make t-shirts, hoodies, leather boots, and belts, with all their products made in the USA by U.S. workers, bringing manufacturing back. If you're interested in any of these Origin products, please go to our show notes and click on the affiliate link. You can also find our affiliate link on our website, evosec.org, in our blog page. Also use EvoSec10 at checkout for 10% off. Well, and you know, as we kind of think through this process of the development of hard skills and soft skills, if you really think about it, the soft skills, or at least let's not even just talk about soft skills in and of themselves, but about de-escalation, disengagement skills, pre-assault cues. All of these things, you need to practice them. You need to be aware of them. But it's kind of amazing that that's likely going to be the most, 90% of the time of you dealing with situations. But yet, isn't it interesting, though, to develop all the hard skills? I'm sitting there thinking about how often we spend time in the jiu-jitsu gym, and in exactly.
Working that fucking choke.
Yeah, dry fire this afternoon. I'm like thinking, I was thinking about this today. I was like, this is sure a lot of hard work in preparation for what is highly likely not to get good.
We all face the tyranny of time, and how we apportion that time. And that's kind of what how I've derived my curriculum on things that people need to think about beyond those hard skills. I'll quote Kelly McCann, another man who had a profound impact on me. And in his world, we love to do the things we hate to do. And that is, you get in the ring, you get knocked out a little bit. That guy can punch me 3 times before I can blink once. And you gotta take that shot to know that yes, you can in fact take that shot. If that's at the level at which you choose to commit yourself. But there's so many competitive things to do. I mean, you're a family man, you got jobs. You're doing this amazing podcast. That all takes time. And sometimes you gotta have some like you time just to unplug and sit in front of a TV or whatever, however you veg, and let everything go away.
Netflix binge.
There you go, Netflix binge. I'm engaged in a YouTube binge right now on a World War II submarine series.
Oh, nice.
From 1957, man, it's kind of cool. All true stories of the silent service,
Nice.
which is really kind of neat.
Awesome.
But that is a guilty pleasure. But at some point, I know I got to get back on the computer and brush up my next presentation for the TACON coming up in March. I got to every weekend I got to refine my curriculum from the last weekend. I've got a whole new class coming up in Phoenix this weekend, and they're going to get something a little bit different than what my class here in Holt, Florida got this past weekend, because I learned a few things.
Cool.
I'll say it right now. Every class I teach, I tell my students they've got one instructor, and I've got 10.
Oh yeah. Good
attitude. I will learn more from them. I will learn more from them than they will learn from me. And so far as I've been into it, it happens every time.
Well, and in this semi-pro disciple role that we're in our business, I cannot agree more, John. And yeah, that's a great attitude. So, Aaron, I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I've got one more question for John.
You're good to go, man. You keep rolling, man.
So John, in your class, so we've been talking about your street encounter skills and tactics. You go over some very important ancillary skills. Can you describe some of those for us?
Absolutely. Probably the most important is I teach people to be very introspective and do a very honest self-assessment, both mentally, physically, and morally, of what you're capable of doing and under what circumstances. And then from that, derive your pre-decisions on who you will you do what for and when. And if it comes down to I'll carry a 5-shot Jane frame in my pocket and it's all about me, or maybe some guys are much more of I hate to use the term sheepdog approach. That's fine, but as long as you come to that, recognizing that there are consequences to that. And along that line, one of the videos I have online, it's 45 minutes long. It's third-party conflicts. And people get involved in these things not knowing the consequences they can be facing. A guy in Texas witnessed a K jewelry store getting robbed. He got involved. He got shot dead. And does anybody think that K Jewelers gives a shit that man was shot dead in front of his wife and kids?
Not at all.
Nope. Another instance took place in Indiana. A lady witnessed a police officer getting the worst of it in a street encounter, came out, shot the guy, clipped him in the subclavian artery, the bad guy, and he fell over. I will just shoot him in the shoulder. Well, I got news. There's some stuff up there. If you clip it, they're going to bleed out. And the subclavian gets clipped. I can't do anything about that. Except hold your hand and do the countdown. Anyway, the police department ended up forming a GoFundMe account for her defense in the civil trial because the dirtball's family sued her. Now that was subsequently dropped after about a year, but that was probably a very unpleasant year for her. Another instance in a schoolyard, a guy went crazy with a gun. 2 other guys arrived, armed citizens, and miracle of miracles, I liken it to the pickup basketball team from hell. Managed they were able to identify each other. Hey, I'm a good guy. I'm a good guy. Let's cooperate and take this fucker down. And they did. And fortunately, they had all the guns put away before the police arrived because that's a huge thing. And then they were being held in custody while the cops sorted things out. And one of the parents of the children had been threatened, saw the guy in cuffs, and said, "You motherfucker, you threatened my child," and tried to lie into him. That was an outcome you would not have anticipated. More recently, and it's in the video view ahead the first 20 minutes or so, in Chicago about 3 months ago, on another note, consequences. It's about skills, options, and consequences. A guy enforced a personal boundary on someone that was parked or stopped at a stoplight. The guy put a bag of trash outside of his car. Our intrepid hero came rolling up on his bicycle, picked the bag of trash up, and put it on the hood of the car, then turned his back. Well, the passenger of the car, flew out of the car, clocked the guy, knocked him unconscious. The car on the lane over saw some impending violence, wanted none of it, floored it to drive to get the hell away, and ran over the head of the bicyclist. So I will guarantee on the potential likelihoods that guy thought he was going to derive by performing that flex on that guy, getting his head run over. He survived. He's fine. He was wearing a helmet. So I'm sure that was not
Big
one
guy.
in his. So mostly what I'm talking about is our consequences to our actions, and the fewer unforeseen consequences we have, the better decisions we can make. So I do a lot of that work.
So let me kind of shape that the way I heard it. You said the fewer let me think about this, how you said it. Basically, just the fewer unknown to you consequences, the better decisions you're going to be able to make because you've seen these consequences somewhere else before. I'm not going to do the same thing.
And you'll have a better depth of knowledge and experience to draw upon. Like, oh yeah, if I get involved in this, if I get involved in this lovers' quarrel,
boy,
I'm putting myself into the worst possible situation. And if he hits me and I hit him, she will turn on me in a millisecond. I mean, how many times have police officers experienced this exact?
Yep.
It's not even a phenomenon. It's just a fact of nature.
Well, and I'd like to comment on that. Again, where we draw very important quick references to our audience members, boy, some of the worst situations derive from domestic violence and lovers' quarrels. Getting involved in any of those is just a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely. There's an example in my video, again, my video view ahead. A guy in Philadelphia, 2 weeks concealed carry, walking through his neighborhood, encounters a lover spat. He witnesses them separate, and he walked up to her and said, "Are you okay?" Dude says, "Do you have a problem?" And but it's my experience that when someone asks you that question in that tone of voice, you do in fact now have a problem. Well, it came to blows. The guy got his glasses knocked off. The only thing he had was his Sig Sauer P226. And it probably still had the price tag hanging off the dang trigger guard. All right. And he shot the guy dead. And the lady's like, "Oh my God, you killed my boyfriend." And then he caught a prison sentence, which was characteristically after the conviction, the charge was lessened and the sentence was lessened. Uncharacteristically rather, but that's kind of it's one of those Soros prosecutors in Philly. You take it for what you will. Anyway, there is a whole host of things that people need to consider before they get involved in these things, or even to prepare to embark upon this lifestyle. And my goal is to give them a good smattering and exposure of what some likely outcomes can be. Beyond just that, I talk about pre-assault indicators a lot, and Craig was formative in my knowledge there. And the grooming gestures, that nervous energy is building up. The ranging shots, they touching the chest. Yeah, he's getting his range down, or that's some kind of a weird flex. Because after he gets that range, what's coming next? That full fist. The deliberate, the revectoring, the deliberate movement towards you, the negotiating proximity. Hey, can I ask you a question? I'm a little bit lost. The feigned, they will fake that the feigned vulnerability. Look, I'm a little bit lost. I need a couple of dollars to put in my gas tank. Well, they close on you.
All while displaying pre-assault cues that you just did then. Yep.
And you're looking for the incongruity. Well, for me, if you tell someone to stop and they don't, or they have just passed through a filter, good people will respect your space. We've all asked for directions on the street. I certainly have. And I make sure that I ask from a respectful distance. Because people, well, if they're exposed to it a bit, they'll take an umbrage to what you're doing. Years ago, I was in the District of Columbia helping some friends move, and I was wearing a long shirt and had my hands in my pants. Local man came walking by. I said, "Hey, how's it going?" He said, "Yeah, I'm all right. How are you?" When he walked by me, his eyes did not leave my hands in my pockets. And I thought, holy shit, am I lucky to have grown up in small town Roscommon, Michigan, where I didn't know how to know what that meant to survive to my 15th birthday. People got to understand what hand position means and how quickly, when a hand disappears, when you see it again, how likely it is that there'll be a weapon of some form in it. These are things that we don't normally cover in our concealed carry, our marksmanship centric classes. And that is the void I'm seeking to fill, that contextual ancillary void of support skills to either give people a chance. I'm not the guy you come to take 1.5 second or a second off your draw stroke. My goal is to give you that 3 or 4 seconds heads up to where you can either depart or get ready, like, okay, I'm going to have to shoot this fool. I'm going to have no other choice. I got to get ready to do this. And then the consequences, branches and sequels that will come naturally after an action like that.
Well, John, I really want to emphasize for our audience, number one, your free material on your YouTube channel. It's life-saving information that you put out there, obviously for free. So, and it's FPF training is your channel, correct?
Correct.
On YouTube.
Correct.
Absolutely, audience members, go out there and check out John's channel. Go through all the videos. If you just start with one, just keep going through it. It's phenomenal life-saving information, and John puts it out there for free. Do yourself a service and go out there and check that out. The other thing that I'll say, John, is and that's what really fascinated me about your classes when I learned about what you were doing. It's you hit it on the head. We've all taken the man camp classes. You know, we won't name any instructors. They're great people. You know, when you're shooting 1,500 rounds of pistol in 2 days, you're probably shooting too much and not learning enough. You know, and I may be wrong, depending on, hey, if it's a Rob Latham class, maybe that 1,500 rounds was spent wisely, but for some of the classes, that's maybe not necessary. But what you're doing is providing some of the most important skills that you can gain, plus some marksmanship. And to me, I think it's a brilliant model. I think there's a lot of people should not necessarily copy what you're doing, but I think they should look at what you're doing and think, yeah, maybe maybe I'm doing too much on the shooting side, but I think it's awesome what you're doing, John. And again, we spoke on this before. I'm fascinated right now, being a newbie in this business, on how we can gateway people into force on force classes, because we know that it's daunting to think about doing, say, like an ECQC or Aaron, you and I, shout out to Cliff Byerly. We got a few weeks, and we're going to be taking his complete combatant, which that's very similar to ECQC. A lot of folks don't want to take those classes because they're physical, ego bruising, all of that. But I think courses like yours is a gateway into making, being under pressure, some peer pressure, decision making, all the pre-assault cues, the soft skills that you teach. You get them in the door in a course like yours, and all of a sudden, hey, yeah, maybe I do need to consider some real force on force. Can you talk on that a little bit?
Sure. The course has been described as a survey course, and I call it kind of like a scoop of Neapolitan ice cream. You get some chocolate in the form of shooting. You get some strawberry in the form of some stop the bleed stuff on tourniquet special dressings, and you get some vanilla in situational environmental understanding. I give people some pretty big scoops, and that gives a chance. And then I make sure I cue them up. Oh, now go see Craig or Cecil or Larry or Paul. Go see Caleb, because this is just enough to get you kind of by for a while, but and a segment of that people, and we have to remember, Carl Rand wrote a piece, Beyond the 1%.
Yes.
And getting people beyond that basic. It's hard because people don't necessarily recognize the need until they have to reflect upon. Sure, it's unlikely I'll find myself in these circumstances, but I do. The stakes are so high. I need better preparation than what I've got right now, and that is the gateway to the realization. I don't want to call it fear. I want to call it accepting the reality that we confront today.
Well,
and it's just where we are in the movie.
Well, John, you just talked about Carl Rend's book and his principle of getting people beyond the 1%. And for the audience out there, what that really means is, in the firearms community, Carl did an outstanding job because he's worked in statistics, and he surmised that only 1% of the firearms community actually train. And even in that 1%, John, Aaron, you guys probably recall, in that 1% was even less that actually do what we're talking about, taking classes like yours, taking classes like Craig's. It's even that much smaller. But I've gotten to the point, it's like, okay, if there's 1%, what if we can get people to the 2%? That's double what we're sitting at right now. And frankly, that book was seminal and kind of why we're sitting here. And there were several reasons that Aaron and Brian and I started this business, but that book was a big part of it. Is because it's like, hey, how do we do our part of getting people beyond that? So yeah, that's a good mention. That's what we're trying to do. Get people to let's get the 2%, get double out there.
That would be a huge milestone.
Yeah.
But what happens frequently, I think, is people have a moment of concern, go to the gun store, and then they'll buy what I would call a sock drawer gun. And they'll put it in their sock drawer, and they'll keep it for a magic talisman to wave if the bad man comes. And we all know that they get to pick the time and place, and the sock drawer may not be the place to have your gun.
Mm-hmm. If you need it now, and it's in there, yeah, it's, you actually, in most cases, you needed it yesterday.
Well, I'll be flat honest. I don't always have a pistol on me at home, but I'll tell you, most of the time I do. And I'm glad I'm practicing what I'm preaching right now. I got my 19 right in my lap.
That's my 43 in a keeper's concealment errand, because I'm in sweats right now. So
all right,
that's awesome. And then here's my 19 and my JM Kydex, my little Hall of Sun.
Lovely company.
Yeah, JM
makes good stuff. We are blessed right now with manufacturers. I'll talk on that in just a second if I could. JM Custom Kydex, Filster, and how innovative they are. Dark Star Gear, Keeper's Concealment. There's a company out of Phoenix now, Devil Dog. They make some great flipping holsters. I mean, for the longest time, everybody and their brother were bending Kydex. But now we're getting to where the industry is really out, breaking out. I mean, Filster in particular, and their Enigma system. And that's now. I mean, Craig's got one for students to use in class.
I saw that.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah.
And then John and Sarah, lovely people. They are constantly innovating, and they're driving a lot of innovation. The whole industry is kind of cooking off.
And by the way, go ahead, Aaron.
I was just going to add one more that has been extremely innovative, and that's Jeff Mao at Tentacore. Another great guy and brilliant holsters. But yeah, like you said, there's just a lot of companies out there forever, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of going off on a little tangent here, but if you flip through your Facebook feed, how many crappy holsters can be in your news feed? And my love is the old standard folded, inside the waistband holster where they call it AIWB and IWB. Dude,
I'm loving the car holster and the car magnets.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh,
boo.
Yeah.
So how can we?
Go ahead.
So it's like you're gonna practice your ass off if you do, knowing that your weapon is holstered on your body, and all of a sudden you're gonna take it off you and put it in your vehicle in a magnet holster, and then when the elephant, and then like, oh crap. Can you imagine? I'm sure that it's either happened or it's going to happen that a person gets in an actual lethal force situation. They get separated from their vehicle and they have no pistol. I think that's the dumbest shit idea, pardon the French, that I don't understand it. Yeah,
and unfortunately, the all these awesome people that are getting their guns for the first time. So many, including me when I was younger. And oh, that sounds like a good idea, But those new gun owners are seeing those ideas they think are going to work. But I do want to say this real quick, that all the new gun owners, my range is a pretty nice range here in Tulsa, United States Shooting Academy. And
Yeah.
it used to be you could go there any day and there'd be a handful full of people maybe in that clubhouse signing in. Every single time I go there was 4 times the amount of people than what normally would be. And I'll tell you what's neat to me is it's all kinds of new demographics too.
Awesome.
So I mean, it just makes you happy, man, when you see a lot of people realizing. I mean, it was the riots, right? It was the riots and COVID, but I think a lot of it was the riots. Everybody realized, hey, I am on my own,
and we welcome them with open arms.
Oh yeah,
and although the ammo crunch may be a little bit affected by that, but and that's okay.
Which is getting better.
It is getting a lot better. But bottom line is, again, what we're talking about folks providing, like John, awesome training and getting more of those people into proper training, for sure. Well, man, this has been an awesome discussion, Aaron. Do you have any other questions you want to ask John?
I have one more question, the most important question of the show.
Dun, dun, dun.
And John, so that is, who are your top 3 favorite bands and or musicians?
Led Zeppelin, Blue Oyster Cult, and the Stones.
Awesome.
Call me a classicist.
Yeah, it doesn't get much more classic than that. So many.
I'm sorry,
so
Aaron.
many.
Go ahead. I was
going to say. So, what were you saying?
I
was going to point to your drums?
I was, because Led Zeppelin. I'm thinking of John Bonham, and I'm just have to point at my drums back here. So,
and here's
look at you.
So that right there. Sorry, audience, you can't see this. I feel like I'm listening to an Alex Jones show where he's talking about stuff on video.
Alex Jones does that all the time.
But yeah, there's that blue one back there. That's my brand new one. FYI, that's my own model from Saul Cole. It's called the AD-16, and that took 4.5 years to get, and I just got it in right before Christmas. And then see this one right here that doesn't have a headstock. I should have got some of my money back. But
I know better than that.
Yeah. But I was just going to say, Led Zeppelin alone, there's probably 1 million guitar players that started playing guitar because of Jimmy Page with that Les Paul down to his knees. And rock on.
Well, and again, mentioning John Bonham, using 4 microphones, the fat drum sound. I mean, John Bonham's drum sound made drum sounds.
Rock 'em.
Yeah.
So Eric, he used the 4 mic technique.
Yes. Yep. And
Go on to YouTube and you'll find a young Japanese girl, Toya, her name, something like that, and she will cover these bands. She's like 10 or 12 now. She can crush it with a smile on her face. In the days of my youth, she's just nailing it.
Oh, and that's a good song too.
Both foot pedals going, bam, 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 not missing a lick. She's amazing, and it just goes to show the proliferation, as you were alluding to, that these greats had across the world. And I guess if we take a step back and look at what we've got going on, and to kind of move toward, we got greats in our past, and now we're carrying that torch, and we're passing this responsibility, these skills, to the next generation.
Man, that's a mic drop right there.
Oh yeah, good stuff, John. Well,
This maker's mark makes me eloquent as fuck, fellas. Let's just say it.
well, John. I wasn't going to mention it because we didn't get on the subject. I said I would have a drink with you, but I'm in the middle of leaning down about 20 pounds because I need it.
I understand.
And so I've been having a little red wine with you. So, and this is a shout out.
Oh.
Yeah.
This is a shout out. Oh,
John
to
Hearn.
John Hearn, because Mike Brown gave him so much shit. That was actually part of my joke, was bringing on some red wine because for John Hearn, and even though Mike Brown can wrap me up like a pretzel, to give a shout out to Mike as well if he's listening.
Hey, Eric, real men drink red wine, and real men can cry too.
Especially when Mike Brown is choking you out.
Yeah, that would do it. That would do it.
So awesome. Well, great, John. Thank you so much for dealing with our technical difficulties. In all honesty, John, I think this is just as good or better. And the content
Better.
I think, we're getting better with age, fellas. Better with age.
Amen. And we'll get this class squared away here for North Carolina. So I'm looking forward to that.
I think we're talking 8, 9 October. Yep. I would love that.
Yeah. I'm working the venue. I've got several, so we'll get it worked out.
Awesome. Well, hey, you guys have a good evening, and John, we'll see you again on this show again sometime soon. Okay, buddy?
I'm very much looking forward to it, Aaron. Thank you.
Awesome,
guys. Well, have a good
evening.
Take
care, guys.
All right. It's that time again for accountability. And Eric, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. Interesting enough, I think you're happy about this, Eric. All of a sudden, my focus, just for a little while, I just all of a sudden changed my focus to jiu-jitsu.
I dig it, man. Big time.
Yeah, and because I drug my feet so much and kind of slowly progressed to get that combatives belt completed and that exam completed. Now I'm wanting to kick into high gear so I don't waste time finishing my blue belt. But so I've been going as much as I can, and I can only go up to 3 times a week. But I've been hitting the masterclass. What's it? The master cycle classes, and getting a lot of rolls in. 2 times last week I went to that class, and the first time I got 5 rolls in. Man, I'll tell you what, the hardest rolling I've ever done in my jiu-jitsu time. So it was good. I was glad about that, but I went away. I think someone was kind of locking up my knee, almost like they almost kind of had almost like a half guard lock on my knee, and were trying to, it seemed like they were trying to, make me tap out from a knee lock or something.
Aaron, out of curiosity, were you half guard top and they were half guard bottom, or vice versa?
Yes.
Makes me wonder if they were doing a top lock that's been made popular by 10th Mountain. 10th Mountain, goodness gracious, 10th Planet. Boy, I got Army in my head, and believe me, the way my day's been. But yeah, it may have been like a top lock. Sometimes it depending on how people put that on, it can start to feel like they're putting a lot of knee pressure on you.
Yeah, so I ended up after those 5 rolls, my knee was hurting pretty bad for a few days. I thought I might have had a decent injury, but it finally went away. And then a few days later, I hit where I had 3 rolls, which was all we had time for because the class went a little bit longer. And man, I was kind of stoked. I took this guy's back, a legit one, rolled over and pulled him over, and he was wailing, trying to get away from me. and I think I pulled my groin muscle on my left side, and again thought, oh crap, am I going to be injured here for a little bit? But man, it went away. I was icing it up, and I came out unscathed. We get a little injured every now and then at jiu-jitsu now, don't we, Eric?
Oh yeah, certainly. As long as they're minor and, work on recovery, they do come.
Yeah. I hit a bunch of ARN cap, natural anti-inflammatory supplement from Thorn Research. I think that helps a lot.
Are you taking your Jocko joint warfare?
Well, it's similar to Jocko.
I was playing with you.
Yeah, I just got hooked on that Thorn Research, and I kind of stuck with it. But so, Eric, here's something pretty cool. I've lamented a little bit to you and others that this, and you explained to me that it's real common with basically all JIT schools, that they'll, once you get into the advanced programs, they just wear you out with technique. I mean, just going through so much technique, you don't see it over and over. You don't see it again for another freaking year, Well, so they announced that they were going to start putting together a blue belt stripe 1 only class. Now, what I mean by that is only covering the material to get your first stripe in blue belt. So, man, I think that could be what the doctor ordered, don't you think? I mean, and they were saying, which is pretty cool, and this kind of goes along with the way Cecil's approach is. Remember how Cecil Birch said that he has like 4 submissions, and that's it, and he's a third degree black belt. Well, a lot of our instructors were saying the other night that, hey, I use blue belt first stripe material all the time. May use it, most of the time. So,
well, Aaron, to me, there's something that I've kind of changed my mindset a little bit on curriculum. And I think some gyms can get a little bit carried away with curriculum, but I am to the point, whereas I've seen some of my training partners and various individuals of different levels, I would say especially at that white and blue belt level, maybe even blue belt into purple, it's good to have some guidance and understanding of what you should know, and just, if anything else, something on paper that what you need to focus on.
Yeah.
And I do agree. I think eventually that you do settle on a handful of techniques. Now, I would say that there's a lot of options for how you get into position. There's a lot of ways to pass a guard. You kind of become artistic in passing guard, but still yet I use a knee slice nearly 80% of the time, so, but I'm just saying that I think you do start to have a reductionist attitude at the further you progress, because the techniques and sweeps and passes and escapes that work best for you are going to work through black belt and beyond. So yeah, there's thousands of techniques, but at some point you got to focus on getting good at the handful that you need.
I'll say this: when you're going against people that know some jits, double underhook guard pass does not work.
Say that one more time.
Double underhook guard pass, where basically you're getting under the knees and doing a stack and rolling around their leg.
Yeah, like a standard stack pass. Yep.
Because, man, I try that. I get in a triangle real fast.
Maybe I can help you with that.
Yeah. Give me some tips, because I get tired of not being able to use that, because I like that guard pass. But Okay, so Eric, so I'm going to jump in here. So that's my JIT stuff. I've been focusing on that more, enjoying it. I'm enjoying rolling. I'll tell you what, man, I really enjoy it. I don't care if I get tapped. I don't. All I care about is communicating. What I mean by communicating, I'm talking about the movement and body communication between you and your rolling partner is just fascinating to me, and getting my heart rate up and just learning as I go. It's just been a blast. Again, people that aren't familiar with it, the Gracie system, it's because they're trying to get newer people into learning jiu-jitsu and practicing jiu-jitsu, because a lot of schools push people into rolling real fast, and they found that they think that pushes people away that aren't as into it as much as aren't as into it as maybe like we are, etc. So you don't roll a lot until you get into the master cycle. So I haven't done a ton of rolling, so now I'm getting to do it a lot, and I'm enjoying the heck out of it.
And so essentially, though, now you're like, man, this is so much fun, and it's invigorating you, right?
I'll tell you what, especially since the techniques that they're going through, but a lot of it, man, is just frankly, a lot of it's over my head, technique wise, and they're going through it real fast. And I kind of get bored during class, and I'm looking forward to rolling the whole time.
Well, and Aaron, if I can encourage you, and I think I mentioned this maybe the last show, and again, this isn't at all me saying that I'm that much more experienced yet. I don't mean it that way.
Jeez, dude, you are. So,
but what I really want to drive home is, I think that time you will eventually have an epiphany to where all of a sudden you're like, man, I can watch that technique in even a complex sequence, and it makes sense because you're used to so many different forms of the way that the movements are chained together anyway. And then you can pick up on what their body movement is, and it makes sense to you. And heck, I'll just say it this way: I bet you a black belt like Cecil or Mike Brown can come on here and describe it even better, because no doubt theirs is exponentially better than mine. So yeah, I think at your level, close to blue belt, you're gonna have those times where it's like, man, it's difficult to understand exactly what they're doing, or maybe even remember how the sequence went together. But I promise you, bro, as you continue, especially as you're rolling, and a lot of the kinesthetic awareness is developing, and proprioception, all that stuff, it's going to come easier.
Yeah, I think it will, and I don't want to belabor it too much, but I don't. Saying that I'm getting bored is a little bit maybe too much of a pejorative about it, but it's just that I think it's because I'm just excited to be rolling. So
that's also another common trait with all of us. Frankly, everybody wants to roll, but I think even especially at your transition, because of the way your gym does it, and you're just now able to roll a lot. Then all of a sudden you get this like, man, this is great. I can understand that completely.
Oh, dude, it's a blast. It has maybe that's why I started focusing on jits more, and do the guns kind of spent more time in the safe because of it. But it's because all of a sudden I'm getting to roll and have fun with it. And it's like, oh man, now I'm wanting to hit this.
Well, and Aaron, you have a highly developed pistol shooting platform, overlearned skills in that, and
thank you.
You have your requisite level. Not that we don't want to continue to get better, but you already have a requisite skill in shooting, man. So, and I argue the same thing for me. That's why my focus is my jiu-jitsu right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so on that topic, so I hit dry fire only 2 times this week, but they were short sessions, also 5 or so minutes. One of those sessions, let me be clear, I'm spending a lot of time extending out to the dot, kind of practicing on the wave technique that Scott Jedlinski teaches, because that is a really good technique, but I think I could make it smoother and quicker. So, and then one session, I spent the whole time with the blue painter's tape over the lens. Now, I got to make a note of that to our listeners that maybe haven't heard that. Just real quick, there's a way to help train your eyes to focus on the target, and that is putting a piece of tape over your optic, and you actually see the target through it because you're seeing around it with your other eye, but that pushes your eyes to that focal point of the target, not on the dot. If you're just seeing the dot and not seeing through it, that means you're focusing on the dot. So just a real quick tip there that we actually learned from Eric Galhouse on his interview. And then now, man, I was going to do an IDPA match tomorrow, but it got canceled.
You guys are snowed in, aren't you?
Well, yeah, I stand, to be frank, I stand in my neighborhood. The main roads aren't bad at all, but like the side roads and my neighborhood, dude, I couldn't get my sports car out of this neighborhood.
So what you're saying is that you ought to have a truck too.
That's true. That's true.
Playing with you, man.
I sure wouldn't mind having a TRD Tacoma, man.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's on my list soon. I'm still getting my miles out of my older Tundra.
Dude, you've been getting your money's worth out of that one.
Oh yeah,
I've spent several years doing some training in and out of that truck. It's
good memories in that truck.
100%. Well, so that's me, buddy. That's what I've worked on this week. It was a good week.
Well, Aaron, I can make mine fairly quick. So I had 4 jiu-jitsu classes. Possibly gonna get another session in before the weekend's over. Yeah, jiu-jitsu has been huge for me lately because I know I've mentioned before the Daybreakers Breakfast Club run by Adam. We've got a 0600 drilling class, and it's been phenomenal. And having that other opportunity, 3 times a week just makes it so much easier to get, 2 more sessions in. And so anyway, 4 jiu-jitsu classes, I feel like my movement's getting much better. My conditioning's back on point even after COVID. And so, yeah, that was my jiu-jitsu for the week. I actually was bragging about going back to dry firing every day. I was 2 times this week too, man. It came down to jiu-jitsu. I've found that I'm so focused on jiu-jitsu that when I have free time, I'm on my Danaher and Gordon Ryan videos. So if I got a split second, I'm sitting around, I'm researching video. So yeah, my dry fire was just twice this week. They were real good sessions though.
Well, Eric,
Yep.
Can I interject something real quick?
Yep.
Part of me not dry firing as much right now is that I don't have a unloaded pistol to just grab and dry fire. So
because you sent one of your pistols off, right?
I sent one of my optics off.
That's right. That's right.
And I may have a confession to make on that when I get it back. We'll see what the determination was, but
I know what the binary possibilities are.
Yeah, and I'll have to fess up, but on that, yeah. So that's part of it is because I have to unload a pistol to dry fire. Man, I don't like doing that, to be frank.
Same here.
So,
and the reason we don't like doing that is two reasons. Number one, you keep cycling your ammo, especially your carry ammo. You know, what is it Tom says once you cycled it through, I think he said 3 or 4 times. I have to look back at my notes, and I keep my marks on there. He says you should toss it out and or put it in the practice pile. And so that's one reason. The second reason, Aaron, I think you'll agree, we're a lot more mature about firearms, about safety, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. Every single time you unload and load a weapon, it's inherently a process that something could go wrong mechanism-wise, all that stuff. That's why I've got to where I unload and reload next to body armor, or at least towards my backyard that can contain a round. So we just minimize having to do the gun handling in that sense. It's just better. So moving on, Aaron, I had one workout again because of jiu-jitsu. I'm not going to lie, as hard as I've been training, I need recovery. Especially like if I go to a Tuesday night class and then go to the Wednesday morning class, man, I need a recovery day. You know, I'm stretching and hydrating back and, you know, giving myself a day of recovery. You know, at this point in our lives, you know, that's needed. Make sure you get your recovery in. So with that said, you know, the workouts are, you know, my standard pull-ups, you know, chin-ups. I've been doing a lot of kettlebell circuits and squats with my kettlebells, and I've been doing a lot of farmer's walks. I've been avoiding lifting heavier squats still, and that's been good for me. Now, for some kind of cool accountability for some buddies of mine, I wanted to give a shout out to some of my buddies that got promoted. Specifically, Brandon got promoted to blue belt. And my very, very good friend, Chris Curry, that lives right down the street from me, he's become one of my most important training partners. He's one of the primary coaches around our gym, and just a good dude. Well-deservedly got his purple belt this week.
Rock on, Chris.
So I just wanted to mention that. And, well, man, I honestly think that's about it.
Well, another good episode. Thanks again to John Murphy for coming on with us. We would not have a show without these amazing guests coming on. And again, just thank you guys for listening. And here's one other shout out to please go out and rate our show and share with your friends. Help us get the word out to get this show to even more people, because we definitely believe we have information on this show that helps people be harder to kill and live better and more fulfilling lives, and frankly have more fun in life. So, well, Eric, I'm going to let you go, buddy.
All right, man. Have a good evening. Take care. Until next time.